Hello everybody. This evening I wanted to talk about a couple comments that I saw on my YouTube channel that were kind of interesting, but it shows the widespread ignorance that there is throughout the United States on this topic. So one of the things is they assumed if you were a clinician or a medical professional that works in a healthcare center of some sort, that you would know better and not say the things that I'm saying. That's the number one error. Number two, the other thing that was very curious was saying that I must be anti-science. This is the other thing that's very crazy. So there you have it. People think that if you are against circumcision, you must somehow be against science. And this is what I want to focus on tonight. In reality, science backs up the pro-foreskin side. People try to argue this in the United States predominantly. Other countries, like I talk all the time about my boyfriend being from Peru. In his country, circumcision isn't even a thing people talk about because it's just so rare and so uncommon. People can't really even imagine what it looks like or anything. I mean, it's just not done. I mean, it would be very much the exception. So you're going to say all these countries of the world, because about 70%, it's at least 70% is not circumcised. So you're going to say all of these countries that are predominantly not circumcised are anti-science? They reject science? No. The fact is they know better. They didn't buy into this practice that started for non-medical reasons. They did not start because of science or because of healthcare. They started out of one, religious reasons, two, in the United States and Victorian era type things of, that somehow they thought it would stop boys from masturbating. These false ideas of hygiene and cleanliness and all of that, all of which have proven to be false. Now, the science and the math, just your basic math, backs this up. First of all of these problems that people want to claim that the foreskin or being uncircumcised or intact causes, guess what? Countries where there is no such thing as circumcision, or it's very, very minimal, they don't have these problems. They don't. So to try to claim that, if you're not circumcised, you're going to have all these problems, well, the United States should have very, very few, because the majority of guys are circumcised. So none of these problems should exist. Now, in Europe, Asia, South America, vast majority of the world where circumcision is very much not the norm, where it's less than 20% in Europe, all of it's less than 10%, 20%, much of it is less under 10%. Certain countries like in South America, I'll give you, for example, I looked it up, the rate of circumcision in Peru, for example, is around 3-point-something%. It's very, very low. These things, you would imagine these countries would have a great many more of these supposed problems that are linked to the foreskin. But guess what? They don't. When you look at the so-called problems people blame on the foreskin, you look at the United States' rate and you look at the European rate, for example, and the numbers are pretty much the same. So it's really it doesn't have anything to do with the foreskin. If it did, the statistics alone should show that where you have a lot more foreskin, you should have a lot more of these issues. And that is not the truth. That's not how it is. So people that want to claim that that circumcision is more pro-science, more medically sound, healthy, whatever, or try to accuse those who are against circumcision of being anti-science, well, sorry, the scientific facts are against you. The math, the statistics, those are against you. Your views are just not borne out in reality. So it's an easy ploy because no one wants to be considered anti-science. If someone says, oh, you're anti-science, you're basically saying that they're stupid. You're saying that they don't know what they're talking about, they're ignorant or whatever. And so it's kind of a cheap shot to try to say, oh, you're anti-science. But, but when you look at the information, science bears out the fact that the foreskin is supposed to be on the penis. Your anatomy and your physiology says that this is how your penis is designed, and so it's going to function better when it has all of the parts it's designed to have. I mean, that's just reality. So, if you want to try to claim all these things, the facts just aren't there to support it. Now, we have to give, I don't know if you'd call it the benefit of the doubt exactly, but an excuse to say, okay, you've been lied to. You've had people who should know better lie to you for several generations, and so maybe you don't know and you haven't done the research. One of the physician groups in Europe, in their statement, in their position statement on circumcision, actually has there's a quote that I like a lot. It says that circumcision is a procedure looking for a justification. It's basically, and that's borne out by, what do they do in the United States? Every few years, some doctor, some group of so-called medical professionals will try to say, oh, circumcision actually prevents this or reduces chances of that. None of it's true. They've tried it with HIV. They've tried it with penile cancer. I even saw a few people trying to say it was could reduce prostate cancer. But guess what? That's ludicrous. Prostate cancer is one of, if not the most common male cancers. And guess what? It's just as common in the United States. If foreskin had anything to do with it, the United States should be good to go, but that's not true. Now, all of these things further support the idea that no one should have the right to do it. It's not life-threatening. It doesn't cause health problems if you leave it alone as you're supposed to. And so no one has the right to make that decision for another person. I don't care what your excuse is, but you have no justification for it. No right to do that. I am very happy that I am not circumcised. I am very happy that my boyfriend is not circumcised. He's very happy that I'm not circumcised. He, as I've mentioned before, he was shocked and horrified when I told him how common it is here in the United States. All he could say was, but why? And exactly, these other countries function wonderfully well without circumcision. They haven't had these so-called problems that people try to throw, at it and claim. So it's just, circumcision is a thing that needs to end. And I'm going to say again, because people have also been talking about, and I see it over and over again on my channel, people talk about smegma. Smegma is secretions from the body, dead skin cells. There's nothing harmful about it. It will not hurt you. I'm going to say that again. It will not hurt you. You have no excuse to try to force the foreskin back before it's naturally retractable, usually in the teenage years. When it finally is retractable, whatever age that might be for you, then you can rinse it with water. If there's smegma there, it's not going to hurt you. It'll come off on its own, and rinsing it with water, don't try to scrub it roughly or anything like that. Someone tried to say I was giving wrong advice. Well, you know what? The people that say that just don't know how it works. And unfortunately, even if someone has their foreskin, doesn't mean that they were raised with the right ideas. Maybe they heard people talking all around them about how dirty it was. Maybe they heard people talking about how, you got to scrub it with soap and water, soap and water, soap and water. They were maybe given this bad information. You have to do your research. I have done my research. I have written papers on it, and I've done the research, and so I'm confident in telling everybody this is what's backed by science. Women have been told this for a long time. Don't use soap inside their vaginas because it will cause yeast problems, various other irritations and things like that. They know this, but for some reason, when you try to tell guys not to use soap inside their foreskin, they suddenly think you're crazy, anti-science, giving bad advice, trying to diagnose. No, this is just basic health care. This is basic health care, and I am a healthcare professional. I have a master's degree in health science, and this area is what I did all of my research on during my master's program. People have forgotten what should be common sense, but they have forgotten about it because entire generations grew up without a foreskin. And so they do not have this firsthand knowledge that previous generations would have just known instinctively. I've even asked my boyfriend about this, and he said, no one ever told him not to use soap inside his foreskin, but he never did. He just was like, why? You don't need to do that. That would, he just knew. He grew up in a culture that never practiced circumcision, and he just knew. So, and this is just one example to show you that here in the United States, on the contrary, people have been indoctrinated from birth to think that if you're not circumcised, it's dirty, which means, must use extra soap, gotta prove to people it's not dirty, so gotta scrub it constantly. And this causes the very problems they think they're preventing, and it becomes this horrible self-fulfilling prophecy. And there is research and things that show how the skin reacts, especially sensitive skin, to soap and other chemical products. This is backed by science. My advice is backed by science. It's not a crazy, just do as I say, and it's not a just crazy, I hate science. No. I follow science. I believe in science. I would even venture to say I am a scientist in a sense of, like in the field of healthcare, medical science, medical information, studies, research. These kinds of things are things that I pay attention to. And when people draw conclusions that are not based on science, it's very frustrating, and it's often very hard to convince them that they really don't know what they're talking about. But anyone who is pro-circumcision, honestly, they've been lied to, more than likely, and they really don't know what they're talking about. They're trying to justify what they've always been told instead of having done their own research, looked at the studies, looked at the scientific information. If you do that with an open mind and intellectual honesty, you will see that these things will become apparent to you. Have a great evening, and see you next time.